All right, Javier, we have more developments, inter-brand developments with Jacob Fatu. No Roman Reigns on SmackDown, but we had developments with Solo and his crew and the Usos. What do you think of this latest chapter in giving a centerpiece role right now, obviously on TV, to Jacob Fatu post WrestleMania?
Well, I mean, you got to do something with when he got on Drew McIntyre, and I think they did a really good job having him just flat out beat Solo, particularly bringing up the fact that he hasn't beaten Solo yet because Solo was won by cheating. So he finally got one there. Didn't need help. He did. They established him. Because I think it's fair to say that he started off like way high, then kind of dropped down a bit, and then they're pushing him high up there. It doesn't feel like he's really a threat to Roman, but it'll be interesting the storyline they're going to do to get there. And I think this is more of a long-term build for Solo, where he'll fail, and then eventually, if the fans are still with him, you tell a longer term story when he finally wins the title.
What do you make of the babyface heel dynamic in all of this? Obviously, Solo and his crew are heels. Roman is just Roman, a babyface. Fans chant OTC. He's, I don't know. He's a his resting face is kind of being a power hungry dick, but people sort of really like that, and he uses his powers towards people who fans don't like, so it made him a babyface. Yet then you have the Usos out of nowhere dissing on the fans, calling them idiots and stuff in the opening segment. I'm not quite sure where they want fans to be right now and where they're landing, but I mean, that should count for something, right? Like Jimmy saying what he said in that opening segment.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm tepid on is it kind of feels like they're going back to the status quo of what it was several years ago instead of embracing the where they're at now. It kind of feels. I mean, early days, maybe it's meant to be that way, and you're going to find out that it really isn't that way. Who knows? Maybe the Usos turn on Roman and side with Fatu. Something along those lines. Because it kind of feels a bit weird where, Roman says, hey, we're going to, last week, and correct me if I'm wrong because I didn't actually watch. I've just been hearing the stuff you said and what they aired today. With the idea of like, I missed the bloodline. Let's bring the bloodline back together. And it kind of feels like, yeah, we're just going to do the same thing that we were doing before. I doubt it's going to be that simple because that would be really lame. And the story hasn't been lame, and it's been one of the stronger things that they've done. If they're just going back there to just nostalgia bait, using the same characters but not a sequel to a good movie done by a completely different director, and like the main actor's not even in it, has been recast. That's kind of like what I'm worried a little bit about, but I've had faith in this storyline. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, that whole thing with the Usos, I'm hoping it's a feint and not a reset to the old days.
Yeah, it's jarring to hear Jimmy just go, none of these fools are going to give you the lifestyle you're asking for. Speaking of the fans, I mean, there's part of me that just fears they don't think that there's value in consistency to the constitution of what motivates and drives the actions of characters on a TV show. And that's just disaster for any kind of week-to-week drama. If fans just think they're making it up as they go along and somebody that they like for certain reasons suddenly shows traits out of nowhere. And I think it's noteworthy enough that it should be brought up by the announcers and not left to just be sort of sitting there as, well, we'll get around to making it make sense later. That to me seems like a jarring comment that's harsh, and that they should bake that in to how they present this development. And I mean, I don't think it's great to have Fatu opposite of a mega popular Roman in an antagonistic way, unless it's a short story arc where the end justifies the path. And obviously Solo right now is heel, and Fatu beat him just by taking some of Solo's best moves. So they're establishing Fatu is at a high enough level to beat Solo, even if there's a lot of shenanigans going on. That was pretty. Fatu won despite them, not because of them. So the Usos really weren't instrumental in it, and he lived up to his word. I don't need the Usos. The Usos were there to watch. They were there just in case. So I think what they're doing with Fatu is good, with the question mark being how are we supposed to feel about Roman and his offer? Are fans supposed to be rooting for him or against him to align with Roman? It's pretty clear they're rooting against him joining Solo because he seems like he's above that, and Solo doesn't deserve him, despite the backstory of him bringing him in. That's enough of a thread to make it credible that Solo would think maybe he could lure him back. But suddenly the Usos acting the way that they are just feels kind of made up as we go along.
Yeah, and to be fair, it was mostly Jimmy.
Yeah.
Because Jay was doing the you let one go and I'm smelling it, dog. Face that he does, and it's part of his. It's been part of his character that he immediately has a no trust with everyone. Whether it's LA Knight, whether it's all the way back to Sami Zayn. But then it turned out that he was justified in it, and it basically reinforced his distrust of everybody. So I'm okay with the way that he treated Jacob, because that's that's been his MO for a bit now. The Jimmy, talking about like the fans are not gonna. It's still like Jimmy never really hit on what his character is. Mm-hmm. So which is why, again, I'm not super. I mean, it's concerning, but we're like at a low def con, not like super worried right now. I gotta see.
It's a fair framing. There's a little bit of just the context of WWE in the larger sense of just not being like, Trick Williams, what's going on with him? He's just slapping some poor guy backstage, and yet he's against a heel Sami. Sami's doing a stunt that usually a babyface does to attack a heel, coming out of the costume. That's all mixed up. And so that, among other things, there's a context to WWE's booking where, well, it's low defcom, and you're right, Jimmy is being the heel, Jay is sort of standing by, not exactly going, hey, those are our people, man. But Jimmy's eating with Jay and enjoying the fans' company, and now he thinks they're suddenly fools. So it's
well, with Jimmy's character, even back, remember, he was the first one, like, immediately embrace Zayn, because his the way I view his character is that he's like, he'll embrace you because it's cool, and he lives in the moment. He'll embrace you because it's cool, and the moment you become a problem, he's gonna snap your neck immediately. So that's why I feel like, when I'm enjoying eating with the fans, but the moment the fans become a pain in the ass, I'm gonna start yelling at them. So I kind of get his character, but which is why, again, like them going back to their starting positions when the original Bloodline storyline is, again, a bit concerning, but there's got to be a direction they're going to be going on, which like I said, like if Roman really isn't going to be around and it's a betrayal of that sort, or he does beat Jacob and Jacob realizes that he needs like a godfather kind of figure and starts listening to what Roman Reigns, and he joins the other two. So those are like two different directions they can go, and then things will make sense at that point.
Yeah. No, I'm intrigued. Where are you on Jacob Fatu and where he is now and the path they've taken? Has it been, because a lot of times fans go, why aren't they pushing him more? He should have been in a main event. And it's like, okay, let's look backwards and let's look at what that would have displaced. And if it displaced something that maybe was slightly less valuable in your eyes than pushing Fatu to the top at that moment, how much have you really lost by waiting versus what you would lose by never being able to go back to the match that was there instead? So no decision, it happens in a vacuum. You can't have Fatu pushed without moving somebody else out of a top spot. So you have to go back and make your case. What would you have done instead? And is the price of waiting greater than what you would have lost by displacing something else? So I throw that out there because when people just sort of dream book, fantasy book, they don't take into account that, those aspects all the time. At least when I hear most of the arguments for that, I don't see it, kind of laid out and nuanced. That said, Fatu was red hot. So I'm going to play the other side a little bit here. And he's less red hot now. Now, I don't know what to make of Solo's near falls on Fatu and Fatu kicking out after some pretty big moves. It wasn't much of a pop. Is that Solo's not beating Fatu and the fans are wise to it? Or is it they don't really care that much about Fatu? They're watching the story, but, if he loses, whatever. We're not like super invested. in whether he wins or loses. I think it's probably they didn't buy that Solo was going to win. But how do you assess the totality of that? The journey that Jacob Fatu has been on, and whether they've been a good caretaker of him and waiting for this moment to rev him up and make him a bit of a centerpiece.
They've been okay. I wouldn't give them like an A+ score. Or like Fatu's interesting because I mean he's not one that I would immediately said push to the top, right? But the moment the fans started getting, I think that when the fans got and obviously you do have to see what's going on at the same time. I think they could have done a little bit more to keep them a little bit more warmer. I think that you could probably even give them a couple more of those like shots, whether it's where it's a triple threat or not triple threat, but like there are multiple people after the belt, and he's always in the picture, kind of like LA Knight, where he's always in the picture, but not. But you also have the injury that changed a lot of the timing of stuff going on. And I think what honestly for me, and I think a lot of some fans, like your regular fans, I don't think really necessarily pick up on it because they just want to see he said the thing, and just want to hear him say what he says. But like when you're trying to hear a promo, and he's cutting a promo, and like 2/3 of his promo was just whatever buzzwords he has, kind of got to the point where it became monotonous. And there was a time where it was really monotonous, and it wasn't until like I don't think they really started. Basically, from him breaking off from the MFTs to his feud with Cody, I think that's where WWE let him down the most. Where it wasn't, they just basically had him repeat the same thing. They weren't really doing anything new with him. And I think that the amount of time that was, fans still cheered for him because, you carry that momentum. But when you got to it wasn't until you got to the Cody Rhodes feud where you got more of his backstory, and you got more into his history, and you got to know him better than just a couple of catchphrases. I think that's when they started heating him up again to going through the feud with Drew McIntyre, which again that was hurt because of the injury or illness or however you want to phrase it that was going on with him, and then having him beat McIntyre in that match and win that feud, since McIntyre's a top guy, and then what he did with Solo. It's not nothing. I mean, I wasn't really invested in the match either. Like the fans might not have been because nothing was going to happen until the interferences started.
Right.
So and because you had the Usos there, like the feel was you're not even going to get a finish. It's going to be a whole cluster between Fatu, but they told a different story. The story that they told is that he really didn't need anybody. Even in the post-match beatdown, he was able to handle his own and didn't require the two. They told a different story there. But because of how WWE books, you were expecting for a big schmoz at the end that wasn't going to give you anything. So why would you engage in the kickouts and stuff like that when it didn't really? It ultimately didn't matter.
I was thinking about that. Exactly what you just laid out. Like during this match, like how much of WWE's booking is done out of rote habit. Just this is how we do things, and how it takes people out of buying into the matches. If whether people are consciously thinking about it or not, when the Usos go, we want to help you, and Fatu goes, I don't need your help. I mean, I guess in their defense, as I kind of talk it out, that you could say, well, one of them could win clean, but then there's a post-match attack, and then the Usos come out. But that even breaks from other fan expectations, even reduce the Usos. You don't expect a clean fall in this match, especially not Solo beating Fatu. Yeah.
But even then, it doesn't really matter because even if you do get a clean win at the end, the story's not the clean win. The story is the brouhaha at the end. So you're waiting for that. That's the main. That's the my God, I'm a writer and I don't remember the high point of the story is that it's what it's building up to. The win doesn't matter at that point.
And I think a lot of what they do, they're like, okay, what story do we want to tell now? What's the big, plot point that's going to elevate this to, to the key point where it's either Fatu with Roman or maybe ultimately Fatu against Roman after being with Roman for a while. And then they book backwards from there, and they don't have the highest concern for the detail of making sure that all makes sense, because they think it doesn't matter all that much because, all this money's coming in no matter what they do, and they just want to kind of focus on the more exciting, big crescendo moments and big feuds, but not be meticulous about it making sense. They kind of are a little bit looser with that, and that applies just to the match formula. I mean, 2 matches on the same show had somebody at ringside standing in the same spot on the left side of the ring compared to the hard camera, grabbing the leg of somebody running the ropes, and then that person getting distracted, and that leading to an advantage for the heel. That, I mean, if you could argue wrestlers are watching all the matches and they're like, that's a good idea, I'm going to do what that person just did, but that's not enough to justify it. It feels repetitive and just kind of, I don't know, lame that it's seeing two cheap kind of partial finishes or interference that can lead to a finish in a row in the same way. Just keep it creative, keep it original.
To frame it another way, the way I approached the match when it started was, I'm not, once they announced the match, my quest is not can Solo win, can Fatu win. I already know that the story is going to be, what I'm looking for is like, how are the Usos going to get involved? Are they going to make things worse? Are they going to get along with Jacob Fatu? Is this going to form an alliance, or is there going to be, something's going to happen where it's going to break them apart? Kudos to them to get the one of the 3 options that I wasn't thinking of immediately, that Fatu was just going to destroy everybody and go home. But still, that's what I was thinking of. I wasn't thinking about the match at all. So then why am I going to invest myself in the match? And you could, everything I said, you could also apply to the one with Rhea Ripley and JC Jane, where that's not going to have anything because you have the rest of the faction outside. What is that? What that story's not about? Can JC Jane get a surprise victory on Rhea Ripley? Can Rhea Ripley punish, as Aldis said, JC Jane? It wasn't that. It was like, in what way, shape, or form is the rest of her faction going to get involved?
And it is possible, and it has been done historically, where bookers go, okay, we've done too much of this. The shenanigans are too repetitive, they're too predictable, and it's undercutting our stories. And we don't blame the fans. We're recognizing the fans are now disengaging from the match until interference happens that people can foresee. So let's not pretend we're clever and our fans are dumb. Let's now change, and let's strip away the cliched shenanigans. And I mean, because Vince McMahon was doing that for a while years ago, the distract someone running to ringside and causing a distraction leading to a finish. It felt like 3 out of 4 matches on every TV show had it for months, and it was just like ludicrous. You just couldn't believe they didn't come up with like the dozens of other ways you can end a match, including, by the way, gasp, maybe doing clean finishes. You could start doing clean finishes. There'd be a little bit of a price you paid early because, like, oh, they're really burying that person. But when you eventually show after a few months, it's not a burial; it's just an outcome of a match, and that person is just fine afterwards. Then suddenly there's credibility in the action again, and people get engaged in near falls. And part of that should be part of this is a bigger topic, big picture topic, but start having secondary finishers and matches instead of being the near fall leading to the actual finishing move used. Really break the expectations of fans that where they kind of learn the formula overtly or just sort of subconsciously, and then you suddenly get people reacting to things they weren't before. Once you hit that reset button, then the interference starts mattering again because there's something more honorable that's happening that usually leads to clean finishes that a heel is interrupting and messing with. But when that's the norm, there's no heat on a heel interfering. It's just the way things are done. But if suddenly you go a year of not doing interference, now all of a sudden people are like, man, match outcomes matter. Dodo, you really laid the law down. You can turn it storyline. Just have the GMs just go, yeah, there's going to be massive fines. You're going to lose, 10% of your salary every time you interfere in a match. Turn it into a storyline, and then the price is heavy, and then this third offense is a suspension, and actually do it. You could do that. Like I said, that's a big picture topic and a side effect, but I think this show is an example of something that is diminishing their storytelling ability to be effective, or storytelling methods being effective, and they should sit back and think about it again, and assess whether it's time to switch that up. Let me wedge a super chat in before we kind of formally introduce ourselves in the show. Super Chats run to the head of the line if it's at all on topic, and it is. Nima Peraz says, why did Io cry about Rhea going to SmackDown on Monday when the Usos and Fatu have shown that you can move it back and forth between the shows whenever you want? Why is Fatu allowed to challenge for the Raw title? Nima has a good point. Thank you for the Super Chat, by the way. Always much appreciated. I'm watching all these NXT talent come up, and it's like this would normally be the result of a draft. Like there'd be NXT. I mean, it's the draft formats were ridiculous and inconsistent and silly. And Vince McMahon didn't know what a draft lottery meant. He just thought the term was fun and then used it in a way that made no sense. We've covered all that over the years. But this would be draft season, and then you would have some people switching sides, and you would have NXT talent being drafted in some form or fashion. And not that NXT talent's always drafted, but this is sort of the time of year you sort of look forward to it. You're excited for it, even if it hasn't happened every year recently. And now, not only do you have just a bunch of NXT call-ups, Ricky Starks coming up, by the way, Blake Monroe getting her intro video, Royce Keys, obviously a recent addition. I mean, there's and we'll get into the biggest heel heat WWE has had in years on TV out of nowhere. That was really something. So we'll get into that also with JC Jane. Anyway, we'll get into that. But Nima's question, Javier. The brand split, what is it? What does it mean to be part of Raw or part of SmackDown anymore?
Yeah, I mean, the Usos almost always had, since they're Roman Reigns' muscle on SmackDown.
Yeah,
kind of like Heyman is like has been muscle for the Vision over on SmackDown whenever he has that, where that had to be they had to touch on that. Some people get that, I guess. The thing about Io specifically is that they're not going to be able to tag anymore. I think that's more the case, and the fact that Rhea's going over because it's the SmackDown title. So she's a contracted quote unquote wrestler. Because they're to be fair, Usos are visiting. They weren't wrestling on the show, so they showed up to visit and because to send a message to Jacob. So. Mm-hmm. You get away with that, and in the case, if they were to wrestle, it'd be like, oh, you were here and problem started. We're going to book this match. So you still have that wiggle room there. It's just that they can't compete together because they're on different brands for the time being.
Okay. Yeah.
That's, I think, what they're going for.
Yeah. All right. Good. Fair answer. All right. Let's pause, introduce ourselves. We'll get to more from SmackDown, and also we'll talk about the names who are not going to be part of SmackDown anymore because there are a bunch of cuts today that made room for some of the people who are arriving, and we'll talk about that tough reality of how WWE operates. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show on Friday, April 24th, 2026. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the long-running Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter. Latest copy, I think I have in front of me, the paper copy edition, Reigns Beats Punk and WrestleMania Classic. Also a note on Brock Lesnar. Got our roundtable reviews. I came out swinging in my VIP exclusive roundtable review on WrestleMania Night 1. That newsletter exclusive review is in this week's Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter. Must read if you want to hear some blunt thoughts and see what my writing is like instead of my talking. That review is on the VIP website and in the PWTorch newsletter. So if you're a paper copy subscriber, thank you. And you can read that when it arrives any day now. This week, and it is on the VIP site, the PDF and all text versions of the newsletter. One of the perks that comes with VIP membership, you can get a VIP membership at pwtorch.com/govip. That'll give you details on signing up with credit card, debit card, PayPal, Patreon, which links up with Spotify, by the way, which is a nice route to go if you're on the Spotify ecosystem. Or you can use your Apple account and subscribe within the Apple Podcast app. But our full VIP membership RSS feed is customizable and compatible with the Apple Podcast app. Also, no passwords or advanced settings to sign up for. It's a nice deal. We'd love to have you. Lots of perks come with it. Nearly 4 decades of archives, new VIP content, audio and written every week, VIP exclusive shows, and you also get commercial-free podcast versions of the Wade Keller Post shows, podcasts, and the daily casts, including the new Worse or Better series that drops Monday nights. Joshua White and Stephanie Chase look at something going on today and say, is it better or worse than it was in a previous era? Really fun format. They're about a month in on that. Check it out. You can get the free version of that with commercials, by the way, by searching PWTorch in your podcast app. Just search PWTorch, subscribe to that for free. But like I said, a VIP membership gets you access to that with a customizable RSS podcast feed compatible with many podcast apps, but a commercial-free version. The commercial breaks are just skipped right over. And while you're at it, search PWTorch, of course, to subscribe to the podcast feeds. One is a podcast version of the YouTube post show, the live stream on YouTube. And the others are Blue Show, which is podcast only, audio only, including the weekly flagship, pay-per-view previews, media Q&As, fascinating flashbacks, interview classics, and more. I think tomorrow night we're dropping a big Jim Ross interview from 10 years ago. So check that out. Some really good stuff on the Blue podcast feed. So search Wade Keller, subscribe to both. We are here to talk about SmackDown and rarely, but on occasion, other topics. And we try to stick close to the post-show format and talk about the show that just ended, but it is related, of course. With all the call-ups, they had to make room, and the room today with cutbacks. We'll get into the names, and Javier, get some of your thoughts on that. Javier Machado is my co-host tonight. Javier, great to have you back in the co-host chair. Welcome.
Yeah, always happy to join you, Wade. I just called up the on AI the people who were released, and I saw who they were.
Yep. So, or you could go to PWTorch.com and read our story. I did a nice job with it.
Yeah, the only problem with that is that I forgot the password. So.
Well, we have a free version. The ads aren't that bad.
I was trying to figure it out. Like, I just wait to after the call.
You just have to remember who you're talking to. It's like when someone's like, "Oh, how will I ever find out the results to a TV show that I want to talk about?" And it's like, let me go somewhere random. It's like, no, we work hard. We have good writers. We have a nice format. It's super easy. Bold letters of who was in the match and capital letters for who won and the timing. And you can even read my analysis as a bonus. So anyway, it is funny how sometimes you're just like, oh, that's right. But because we have a free website, everyone's welcome to go there. You don't need your password for that. You're the second co-host in a row I've chewed out after Brian spoiled the opening minutes of my a sporting event that I didn't want to know the results of. I appreciate this being a spoiler-free zone when there's games going on at the same time. Our chat has long asked for that because sometimes a lot of people are watching wrestling, but they want to be able to watch their sports on demand or DVR later. Javier, how did your WrestleMania predictions go, by the way, on the website that you refuse to visit when you want to find out who was cut from WWE? How did your rest? Because Javier, for new listeners,
I'm so used to the VIP. Wait, I forgot there's a free one. Okay,
I know. I can't not give you a hard time for that though.
Yeah.
I mean, on my show while I'm plugging the website, you're like, I asked AI for results. So reliable. We have there's a lot of good content on PWTorch. So for people who've fallen out of the habit of reading that, I know, it's all about, social media tells me the news. And then, by the way, aggregator sites, like I'm sorry, Javier, I'll take a sidebar here. My job isn't to police bad news, like false news or things blown out of proportion on social media. But I mean, I'm like, oh, maybe I should report on this. And I text people like, oh, I mean, it even happened tonight with a prominent name posting about some crazy stuff happening behind the scenes on SmackDown. And the response from somebody who would know is it's total bullshit. We really do curate, check. And if you're just into getting a buzz from something that may or may not be true, like Aleister Black was never going to be the person who was on the phone with Randy Orton. That's not a thing. It's like, it's gained steam because people running it on social media are talking about it. The chat's talking about it. My understanding, my reporting, I haven't reported on it. I just ignored it because I don't rebut every rumor that people just believe from some flaky source. Somebody right after MJF lost the title said, oh, he's going to film a movie. And I contacted someone in AEW. I said, is MJF scheduled for the future shows live on the air? And they're like, oh yeah, he's scheduled for all the weeks come up. He's wrestling. He's not going to a movie. But people are making money from doing SEO friendly headlines with something that may or may not be true because they want to get more followers on social media or they want to waste your time with clicks so they can make money by feeding you false or unbacked news or sometimes made up news. And so I'm just like, you can do that if you want. I mean, if it entertains you, but it leads to weeks of discussion about things that aren't true. And I'm sitting here kind of knowing they're not true, but I just don't have time to debunk stuff. And it feels sort of not unprofessional, but it's like, is it my job? But anyway, so that's my little side rant about this because it's just been happening. There's a social media thing. People are talking about Aleister Black and something that wasn't in the plans, and then the MJF thing. If you want to know if something is actually happening, I mean, we don't cover every single story that's true, but PWTorch is a good place to go to fact check. And if we're not talking about it, there's a pretty decent chance it's probably not true, if it sounds like some insider scoop that somebody has on social media or other websites. There are reputable sources. I mean, like, and there's, handful of them who are good with this stuff. Make sure it's coming from them and not the SEO aggregator sites that have been bought out by big international corporations, and then they pay people pittance to just deliver news, whether there's news or not to deliver. That's actually true. All right. There's my journalism rant. Javier.
And I'll plug you on something, because two things where I was impressed on the thing with your work. One was the Dean Ambrose Moxley leaving WWE. I knew that was true because there were stories that had gotten a lot of buzz and publicity and speculation that you weren't talking about. And I'm like, he's not talking about it because it's not true. And then it was later revealed for it not to be true. So, like, I do trust, I'll listen to what other sites say. And, I'm like, okay, I'll keep, hold it with a grain of salt. But until you've reported on it, you or the rest of the guys have reported on it, I don't buy it. Even from the other reputables, because they could be mistaken. Because I know you check your sources. So I do trust when news comes out from you.
I mean, there are people who I have on the very short list of reputable reporters who are wrong more often than I wish they were also. And I fault on the side of not reporting something unless I have a high confidence through my sourcing that's reliable and doesn't feel like there's an ulterior motive. But I'm just not at a point where I'm chasing an extra few dollars by putting something up that's going to grab traction on and be aggregated to people's phones and have my reputation hurt when people just go, oh, remember those, 3 stories Wade had that were wrong. But boy, I hope he enjoys going out to eat one extra time that week with the money he made off of us wasting our time with false info. So anyway,
it was specifically the when Bray Wyatt was out before he passed, that he had that long layoff. Everyone had a speculation. You never talked about it, and other than to say that what they're saying, a lot of what you're hearing is BS. So that's what it was.
Yeah, thanks, Javier. All right, so how did your WrestleMania predictions go in your because Javier writes preview WWE PLE preview articles on our website. How'd they go?
Very surprisingly very well. I'm used to not having that many come correct. Including with the rumor, the rumor of with the exception of the rumor that supposedly Orton was going to win. That I think on the first note was the only one I got 100% wrong. I'll be honest. I do kind of push on some of them saying, if this is the plan, this is what's going to happen. If this is the plan.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. I mean, doing an analysis piece on things that somebody could sit around with their buddies over lunch and speculate might be the way things go is different than a bold headline meant to waste people's time with something that has, you're declaring something more than exists. Even some pushed news through services, you read it and you're like, that didn't say anything. Like, that said something very obvious, followed by a caveat that it might not be true, followed by an alternate perspective. And you're like, do you really need to send an email out about that one? So I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't yeah, go ahead.
Particularly the one with Paige, because I was okay, well, Nikki's injured if he's out, and there's a big, and it's not like Natty as the replacement. If it were somebody big, they will win, because that's obviously what you do in that case. Yeah. If not, you just always, if there's a multi-person match, always go with the 99%, 95%, 95% of the time, go with the actual incumbent champion.
Yes. Now with all these releases, I'll list some of them in a second. There's gonna be a lot of news reports that are regurgitating conventional wisdom about past reports, like Aleister Black. Oh, he wouldn't do jobs in AEW. He refused to do jobs in WWE, and he was fired because of that. And it's like, just kind of learn to recognize too that a lot of reporting that you can go, hey, I wonder if the issues that he had in AEW, which to some degree are blown out of proportion. There's some isolated incidents that were true, and then it turned into something large. But there's going to be people reporting on things that are like, can I construct a story to make my editor, who doesn't know anything about pro wrestling, happy that I delivered a story to him that got a lot of clicks because SEO grabbed onto it? And that is sadly what a lot of journalism has become. And you can pick and choose who you support with your money or your time or your ad views. But there's a lot of that out there. And kind of, I think you can, I'm not going to name names, but you can pretty much discern the sites that are throwing a bunch of splashy headlines that are very much meant to grab SEO, search engine optimization stories to aggregate to people's phones and feeds. And And, you can decide if you want to be supportive of that. It's hard. It's an addiction. And, social media plays on that also. But anyway, if you want to be part of the show, you can email us, wadekellerpostshow@gmail.com. You can call us. There's a link to be a video or audio only caller. Just turn your camera off. In my TV report at Javier, what's the website? PWTorch.com. That's where my SmackDown report is. If you want to read what I had to say about the show.
It's I'm like, wait till they give me a hard time.
I promise to let it go soon. I don't know what soon means. Probably when I forget, because I'll just forget soon. And let's see. So be a caller. Find the link in my TV report at the top and bottom. And then you can also just be in the chat. We got a live chat going on the YouTube side of things. Hello to everybody on the podcast side of things. That's where most of you are. Thanks for downloading the show as always. Give us a 5-star rating. But you are all invited to join us live on our live feeds on YouTube. Just go to the PWTorch YouTube page or find a link in my TV reports. It'll take you right to our post show that starts roughly 5 minutes after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. We also have our NXT crew doing the NXT post shows. And we also have Wrestling Night in America, PLE, and pay-per-view post shows on the YouTube channel, always distributed there. Sean Plichta says, Wade, I always read your report after the post shows. I love having my own thoughts. Good. Okay. That's totally fair. BJF says, let me just get right. BJF 7889 says, my only addiction is PWTorch. That's a good addiction to have. That's better than most. Yeah. All right. Cool. I think that's all I need to plug and and give you a hard time about, maybe. So let's talk about some of these cutbacks. And first, I want to say cutbacks are part of professional wrestling, and you can be sad. I'm sad that I see people who put in years and years and years of work honing a craft, and when they get cut, there's almost nowhere to go to make money on that skill. They've just invested years of getting good at, better at, not very good at, but good at other things, whatever, it's so weird. It's such a specific skill. It doesn't really translate elsewhere. You can go to AEW, you can go to Impact, TNA Impact, you can go to New Japan. There's an indie scene to a degree. You can patch together something if you're a big enough name with a gimmick that people kind of want to see in person, but it's tough. But WWE can't hire people for life. And truly, viewers don't want that. I mean, some people deserve to have a job till they retire. AJ Styles was phenomenal. He deserved his job till he retired. Some people, for all kinds of reasons, aren't at AJ's level. So it's not being heartless. It's just being a realist. You can't have new wrestlers on the roster. Everybody you saw on today's show, almost everybody, would not be there if WWE hadn't done cutbacks 5, 10, and 15 years ago. All these people you saw on TV tonight would be out of work, never given a chance if they just kept everybody around until they retired. So I say that not to be heartless, just to be a realist. There's going to be a cycle of people who get cut. It's not a heartless corporation doing it. It's their right to decide. It's their prerogative to pay somebody flight, for their flight and a paycheck to be on a TV show that they've created. It's not a guarantee. So having said that, sometimes we're still surprised. Sometimes it seems kind of harsh. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, for instance, were cut. I broke it down in the story that I posted on PWTorch into kind of the what I thought were kind of the biggest names, and then some kind of not so surprising names like Apollo Crews. Okay. I mean, truly, we were kind of waiting around for that for a while, and it took a while for it to actually come to fruition. But Javier, the Machine Guns are on that list. The Aleister Black and Zelina Vega certainly generating buzz. Kairi Sane is, from a storyline standpoint, the most surprising.
That was, yeah.
Because she's in the midst of a storyline. I was told tonight that creative had time to wrap this story up and didn't. And it's just, there's still people going like people, apparently some people knew, and the communication wasn't made to make sure that they finished the storyline before the cutback, which is weird. And then also the Wide Six, the whole crew. Nikki Cross, Joe Gacy, Dexter Lumis, Eric Rowan, and of course, Bo Dallas. Zoe Stark, that's a tough story. Alba Fire, Then you get into a good number of developmental wrestlers or NXT wrestlers who also were cut back. Tell me your thoughts on the names that were cut. What jumps out to you, Javier?
I mean, honestly, nothing really did. All of this kind of felt like this was the case. Aleister Black and Zelina Vega were getting less and less screen time. They basically replaced what Cameron Cross was doing, where they were the ones corrupting other people. So that's not really super surprising. They were just like background characters. Kairi Sane being the most surprising because of the storyline that she was in. I would wonder if there's also like, I don't know, like injury questions there. If they're worried that she might be, because she's so small and like seems like she dies every single time she doesn't move. I don't know if there's something along those lines. But yeah, so she was surprising. Santos had that whole thing where he was let go, then brought back, didn't do anything, let go again.
Yeah,
and that was mainly surprising because you would think that they could use them in AAA. In that respect, Motor City Machine Guns, what was surprising was that just they hired them and then didn't do anything with them. So
I disagree with that. I mean, semantically, I guess I disagree. They didn't. It's not that they did nothing with them. They gave them a chance to have some good matches and have some WWE TV exposure. They were part of the cluster of tag team era where everyone was kind of on the screen at once. Yes, I mean, they should have done more to develop their characters. And they were in the midst of a storyline, like with Sabin and Shelley, like bickering over stuff, and they never got a chance to finish that. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, when it's more referring that they came in like on fire. They won the titles. They came in with like a massive push, and then it was like they slammed on the brakes. They disappeared for they kind of like just melted into the background of like all the teams wrestling with the mainly the White Six. That was when the White Six got involved with stuff. So that was more, I was being a little bit hyperbolic, but not by that much.
Yeah.
I was surprised that they would make that big of a deal, and then because it wasn't like their matches were still great and people were like into their matches, and then all of a sudden it was like whew. I blame that more on the booking of the division than anything else. But Cruz, like I'm surprised he'd still been around as long as he was. Zoe Stark doesn't necessarily surprise me, but I think that there was something there, and she was starting to show up before her injury. So, hopefully she gets to do something. Alba Fire just, again, not really a bit player. And then like the White Six, that was obvious that they had past their best by date. It's a shame that they never really did anything with them, but there's a lot of people that have a specific ceiling for a lot of them, and so I'm not super surprised by that.
Yep. A few comments in the chat. Cavante Small says Zoe was hurt and she was still cut. I think that's kind of what's controversial about that. Just you suffer an injury in the ring, and then you find out, as you're recovering, your pay stops, and you aren't going to be brought back. That's tough. I mean, I would want to learn more about that, but my initial inclination is to want to know more because it feels a little bit heartless. How many months do you get to stay on payroll while hurt if you're injury prone or the injury's your fault or you're not training or rehabbing the right way? I mean, I'm just saying there can be caveats where the sympathy kind of, is reduced or dissipates entirely, but that jumps out a little bit. The fact that they didn't finish the Machine Gun story and, with Gargano, and then obviously the Kairi Sane thing, it just feels like we suffered through months and months and months and months and months and months and months of Asuka and Io and Kairi, and Kairi's not going to be around to like decide whether she's tired of being treated that way or not. I don't know.
And to be fair, I didn't get the impression that the fans were super into it either. Because normally, like you people like Big Dude with MJF, Wardlow. People were ready for Wardlow to just smack MJF. I don't think people really even kind of knew what they were with Kairi Sane. So
yeah, but I would say whether you care or not, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but I'm adding to it. There's still a reason to wrap it up, because what you don't want is people to go, look at me, one of those stories that they might never finish. You're training people, you're conditioning fans to not invest in things because it might never have a conclusion, you know, and you know, the backstage attack storyline sometimes are done for one reason and then not followed up on when somebody's injured or they change plans or whatever. Sean Plitcher says, Kyrie was the one that actually drove me nuts. Forget about her. I forgot about her. She's so freaking talented, but she will find work. BJF7889 says, the main one I was surprised at was Kyrie because of the storyline. And Goodfellas says, Kyrie Sane's release, they lost the plot. Goodfellas says, the Motor City Machine Guns would be a solid AEW pickup. I agree with that. Let's see. Goodfellas says, Aleister Black should go to TNA and show his true skill set. I'd love to see his story play out. Cavanti says, the roster has been bloated for a while. Sean backing up, by the way, that TNA would work well for Aleister Black. Aleister Black he'd be a good pickup for TNA. I don't know if WWE would frown on that. Hopefully they wouldn't, even if they're, you know, have their tie-ins and affiliations. He could become an attraction. He could be the alpha character on that show and really freshen things up and interact with the current top people in the mix there. What do you think about that, Javier?
I would love to mix it up with Rosemary and the Dark World. Oh, man, it's been a while since I've seen it. Becoming like the new Father's James Mitchell of that. But yeah, I'm only half joking there because that would be interesting. But
I mean, Santana against Aleister Black.
But yeah, and
works
you also
for me as a headline.
Yeah, and he still can work. So having someone who can work in TNA is always good too.
Having Black show up as a babyface against Ryan Nemeth or Nick Nemeth, or I keep plow through Ryan too. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a decent number of storylines and that he could be dropped into, and opponents that would be nice, fresh matches, different members of the system. Moose. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, maybe not. We'll see. I didn't hear, and I've heard pushback that he had like attitude issues. It was kind of more they hired him to take him away from AEW, but I mean, I'd heard Paul Levesque was just never that crazy about him. Like, and so it wasn't a surprise to people that he didn't get the kind of push that people wanted him to get. And I don't know if he had enough friends in high places to kind of override that. I don't know every interaction he had that might have, you know, Rob Van Dammed him in Triple's eyes a little bit if he just sort of had, you know, an aloofness that Triple H felt wasn't grateful enough for the opportunity he was given. I mean, there's all kinds of things that people can read into, but there wasn't like overt stories of him that I have been able to track down of him just being difficult to deal with and, you know, groaning about doing jobs, or, you know, he didn't have leverage to say yes or no to that. People don't want to lose to Jade or Tiffany because especially Tiffany, doesn't care about WWE. You know, she's just in it to get to as a stepping stone somewhere else, but they don't have a choice. They have to do what they're told. You know, their jobs go out and have the best match they can because management's pushing her because of X, Y, and Z, even if you don't respect her. You know, wrestlers don't have the agency to not do what they're told. So if they told Aleister Black to do something, I mean, and he said no, that could explain his cutback. But I just think he was being used how they wanted, and we can see with Kyrie and the Guns, they had midstream storylines going, and they just abandoned them. Zelina, though, was talented, and I think they could have done more with that pair, even if it started feeling a little like a derivative of Xavier and Scarlett. Or Karrion Kross and Scarlett, excuse me, yeah.
Yeah, so, and Motor City Machine Guns had TNA, because I love Chris Sabin in TNA, so.
Brian says, I thought Triple H wanted him back. Triple H wanted to take somebody who was part of AEW, but my point is not that he didn't want him back. My point is he never thought super highly of him. You can want somebody for one reason, but not really get motivated to push them and not, you know, have just not feel motivated or invested in wanting to get them over. And I think that's what happened. It's like, oh, we can get an AEW guy. Hey, that looks good. The talent's coming our direction. And he was getting a push. That'll make Tony Khan mad for a couple days, but I don't plan to push him. I don't believe in him. I don't think he's top guy, but it'll make Tony Khan be in a bad mood for a day or whatever. Yeah. Let's see. Do I think Aleister would try AEW again? Would AEW try Aleister again? I don't know. I've thought a little bit about that. I haven't asked around. I've talked to people in AEW about him who like him and don't like in positions of influence. I wouldn't say power, but influence. There's a difference there. Who knew enough about him to not think it would be like a dead issue where there's no way he'd come back. So, but Tony Khan probably has interactions with him that people don't know about that could dictate that. So I'll throw that out there. Yeah, and Goodfellas said Triple H had him beat Randy Orton. Yeah, where did that go? Sometimes somebody gets talked into something or something is done, and then they find out, oh, see, that's why I didn't want to do it because of the crowd reaction, and it becomes some self-fulfilling, like, not self-fulfilling prophecy, but a self-affirming reaction to something that someone gets talked into, and they're like, see, I was right. And so I had to kind of think back about that. But yeah, all right. Anything else on the cutbacks? Anyone else on developmental that jumps out to you? Or Nikki Cross? I mean, she said she's looking forward to doing more. She'd be good in TNA. I think she'd be a good addition. She's talented to the AEW women's roster.
Yeah, if she's into the wrestling, then for sure the AEW would be fine. Be fine. If she's more into the character work aspect right now, I think TNA.
Yep, that makes sense. All right, very good. Let's.
And I don't know any of the TNA talent. They just have the weirdest.
NXT, you mean?
NXT, yeah.
Yep. All right, so let's switch to back to SmackDown here. Tiffany won the U.S. Championship, so she didn't get a WrestleMania spot. The announcers are drawing attention that she must be angry about that. That she was, and they talked about that at WrestleMania or the SmackDown before Mania. That it is a step back for her. I was chatting with people during SmackDown who had some insight into whether this is that Tiffany not being on SmackDown but winning the U.S. title, should that be seen as they're trying to send her a message, or no, there just wasn't a spot and the U.S. title is a way to give her a boost? Is it also about Julia not really connecting, not getting a crowd reaction? Because when there was a big crowd reaction later in the show for NXT call-ups, and when you have that, certainly some ticket buyers have seen Fatal Influence in NXT, but there was something about that just like that in the back. People like, okay, something's working here. That moment hasn't happened with Julia. Even with Kiana James trying to, be a mouthpiece, and now they're creating a little, kind of a bickering tease storyline breakup. It could just be a sign, the Julia thing's not working, and we have an investment in Tiffany. She's going to be a secondary champ, but we can get everything we want to get out of her at a secondary title level. But we're not going to put her in the main event mix because, there's people we like more and believe more, and frankly, people who are more invested in their careers here than Tiffany is.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I thought this was Tiffany's best match that I've seen from her,
and that should be a point scored for both Tiffany and Julia.
Yeah,
Julia carried her, but and Tiffany is so freaking talented, even though she's got a foot out the door already in certain ways. And she's, said, I by age 30, I want to be in Hollywood. It's like, you can think that, you can talk to your agent about it. You can talk to your best friend about it. Maybe your mom or your sister. Don't say it to the media, because the whole locker room hears that. None of them are going to like that. Some of them might have the same thoughts, but they're not going to like that being put out there. But she's such a gifted athlete. She's not gifted on the microphone. I didn't think it was awful this week, but it's still not good. But yeah, Javier, it was a good match.
Yeah, well, and the reason I brought her up was, obviously she's going to be carried by the better wrestler, but my problem with her is always it felt like her moves are choreographed.
Yep.
And wasn't hitting that link where her gymnastics felt like it was offense. This time it did. Some of the hits were snug. The only complaint, I really like that match. I think the match, people got into the match in the crowd. The only complaint I had about it is that there were some piss poor kickouts in that match, because there were a lot of pins that were like leverage or something, and when the 3 count was coming, the wrestler holding down just let go.
Mm-hmm.
There was no push off. There was nothing. There was just a let go, and that happened like 3 times during the match. Outside, where it was egregious. Outside of that, it had, particularly the first part, the early part of the match, they were just running through it and going really, just hitting it hard. The two of them felt like they wanted to prove something. The two of them felt like they were, upset that they were snubbed for WrestleMania, and the two of them wanted to put on a show. I don't know if it's that they rehearsed it a lot because they had the extra time, but I really thought it was a really well done match.
And those kickouts are an ingredient in wanting to improve your craft that isn't flashy and sexy. And when that is weak, it can be a sign of somebody who is thinking, well, my job is to use my world-class gymnastics to do flashy spots, but you don't really take pride in learning from others. Not that veterans are perfect about good, strong kickouts either these days, but that can be symptomatic. And I want to rewatch it and see if it seemed like, was Julia as much to blame as Tiffany? Do you think in those situations?
In one of them was Julia had the submission on, and then Tiffany pushed her into the pinning position, and then it felt like Tiffany just kind of rolled off of her without Julia really pushing off. She did let go, but Tiffany was still in the pinning position, of the submission. But Tiffany still was on top of her, and then Tiffany kind of rolls off. I'm like, I don't get why that happened without her really pushing. And then there was like another one later on that also. I think it was the other way around. So I don't know if it was in both cases whose fault it was, but there were two that were pretty like obvious. You didn't kick out, and the other one let go. But yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
All right, let's shift to what happened with Trick Williams and Sami Zayn. I referenced earlier Trick Williams. By the way, it so looked like it was Sami in that Ginger Man outfit from the beginning with his posture. Like, it's crazy that if you watch Sami enough, you can look at a guy in that outfit and be like, that's Sami's kind of posture and body language and the way he kind of moves a little bit. There's something distinct about that. So I don't know. It wouldn't shock me what it happened.
I'm kind of hoping that the guy that was going to warn Trick Williams was about to warn him that, hey, somebody took out the gingerbread man and stole his and then he just smacked him.
Oh, that'd be good.
That'd be great.
Yep. But by the way, that was unprovoked assault and battery. And if they want Trick to be a babyface, it's just, people roll their eyes when I pick on them. When I point out that they have security guards beat up these hourly wage workers who just get mauled for doing their job and not doing anything wrong. But I think that stuff adds up. It's damaging. The same thing as Miz having 4 cameras roaming his house to film every new room he walked into when Danhausen made an unexpected visit. It's just farcical. And so the idea that Trick has just hit somebody, this big, powerful Trick has beat somebody half his weight, a foot shorter than him, and it's just funny. It's just stupid. I mean, are you doing a farcical show where nothing's supposed to be taken seriously, or are you going to try to like sacrifice a few haha moments to make it seem like there's sort of a structure to the culture that everybody adheres to? And I know a bunch of people are like, well, I'll enjoy it anyway. It's like, well, you don't know what it's like to enjoy it without that nonsense. It's actually more enjoyable when it seems like people are kind of taking seriously that things that are done have consequences. And I don't know. I'll stop my rant there because I don't want to bore people too much with it. But I mean, that's not a babyface move. And if it's a heel move, that should get someone fined and suspended. Or arrested. And then they just treat it like, oh, it's no big deal. Because that wasn't like a shove. Like, oh, get out of my way. Why just do that? Or we can knock the phone out of his hands and talk about it for an hour. But no, he like smacked him, Javier.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, and they it was a pimp slap because they call it the Trick slap, which is what it was. And so it was just a joke based on the kind of character that Trick plays.
Yep.
It's funny that you mentioned what you're talking about because like I was just laughing the entire segment, like the entire from the moment he came out, not in a good way, not in a productive way. I'm not laughing because it's productive and I was having fun. It's because it was so silly. So dumb, where you basically have a straight up heel baby versus babyface scenario, yet stuff is so inverted that the guy who's the obvious heel in the scenario is the babyface, and the one who's the babyface in the scenario is the obvious heel. And like it's not even like the character work is there, so it's not even like it's a thing where it's like, oh, he's being an uptight babyface, and a jerk because he's with a holier than thou attitude. That's not what Sami Zayn's been doing. Mm-hmm. But like the whole presentation, because I mean, it already started, but like I was thinking that, okay, well, you turn Sami Zayn heel and you turn Trick Williams babyface. That was what I like. Okay, that was one I got wrong on my predictions. That's what they should do at WrestleMania. Just have, there's a perfect time for a double turn. Sami Zayn goes too far, cheats to win, you have a moment where Trick Williams has a chance to cheat to win, decides not to. That would have been a perfect time in WrestleMania to do a double turn. Or tonight would have been a perfect time to do a double turn. But instead, they're just leaning into the fact that Trick is going to continue with his more D-bag stuff, which, and it's not, I'm not talking about the attitude. The attitude's fine. You could be, cocky and all this stuff and still be a baby face, but like, hit him the heel and this pompous celebration and stuff, while the baby face is, trying to get back because what happened, and then like everybody's like booing. He's like, Sami Zayn's like, look at, I'm pantomiming, looking around for the people who are not watching YouTube. And Sami Zayn's like, just, I don't get it. I don't get why people are booing me this hard. Because that was the second hardest heat of the night was Sami Zayn. And I love Sami Zayn just running out and like, still slapping hands and stuff. Like he's still acting like a babyface. But it's like a complete perversion of what you're doing. And like, if this were like TNA for me, because I know we differ a little bit. We differ a little bit in like, in what we enjoy. Like TNA, like each segment of me is like in its own universe, but WWE is not like, WWE is just one place. So the fact that Danhausen's magic tricks work when he's being recorded and don't work when he's in the ring, that sort of thing, kind of breaks immersion. Mm-hmm. But this whole Sami Zayn thing makes it feel like the rest of the show is fake, because it's just, hey, let's just laugh at the skit as opposed to let's tell a story that we can invest in.
It just feels like an abuse of the parameters that they have at their disposal, to just put whatever they want on TV. Do you think Sami is legitimately, like, it's almost turned into a shoot where he's just like, what did I do? And it's in what's the thing about that is they were, it seems like they're heading towards him turning heel. It's just the fans turned on him sooner than whatever he was going to do to actually officially turn heel. So there is a shoot element to like, what did I do that led to you turning on me before I did the thing that was going to lead you, that was supposed to get you to turn on me? So you kind of have that going on. And Sami does feel like, I think there's like this disconnect. You guys were with me through a lot of journeys. And yeah, I played that kind of obnoxious, over the top, paranoid heel character for a while. Where's was it the documentary on Sami? That was a whole thing he did a few years ago. Rewanted the documentary. But but other than that, he's been this beloved sort of Teflon babyface, and suddenly Trick shows up. He's miscast as a heel, and then fans are like, okay, we're so excited for Trick to be a babyface, we're going to turn on Sami soon, like sooner than the storyline called for. And then you end up with a mess, and they haven't cleaned up the mess yet. And, like little Yachty saying, Trick's not going to hand out title shots. Like, I sort of applaud that. I'm kind of against like Darby doing like just anyone step up, you get an AEW World title shot. I think for Darby, it's fine, but I think it's policy wise, you want to have your world championship feel like it's rare and prestigious to get a title shot, not like a secondary title US Open challenge. That said, I think with what was I going to say about I lost my my plot point and my diversion to AEW. But with Trick, fans want him to be because Lil Yachty said he's not going to hand out US title shots. It's like that's sort of a heelish thing to do, but yet it's not changing that the fans just like him because he's cool. Like I mean, to me, WWE has just sort of lost their way and they're flailing in terms of being able to anticipate how fans are going to respond to something, and they are in needless battles with fans right now over the crowd reaction they're getting versus the crowd reaction that they want. And there's a incongruence in WWE's recognition of what their fans want to cheer and want to boo. And I mean, people are throwing way too, like, looking at Cody Rhodes and thinking, oh, it's obvious they're turning him heel. And it's like, to me, it's obvious they're not. It's kind of a Sami thing. I think they want in their back pocket they can turn him heel if he decides to align with the final boss at some point or something like that. But, I mean, the commentary, I talked about this with Zach Adorn on the flagship on Tuesday. Live in the building, Cody was being heel. But if you listen to the commentary, Cody was a babyface, and the announcers are framing his heelish tactics as fighting fire with fire. They're trying to tell the story of Cody's not a sap. He's not a pushover. If someone does something to him, he's going to match them. He's going to kick him low if they kick him low. He's going to use brutal tactics if they do that are outside the bounds of sportsmanship. And that's supposed to help get Cody cheered because he's not a sap. He's not a guy who's just going to be a pushover and lose because he's not willing to fight fire with fire. And it seems like, I don't say obvious to me, but I think it's like the most logical conclusion to draw from how they're telling the Cody story. And it worked tonight. He cut a just rather generic kind of baseline establishing reset. Here I am. I'm champ. This is in the rearview mirror. Here's what I'm looking forward to coming up. Here's what I stand for. And by the way, I want to rant a little bit about the TKO folks kind of trying to gain some popularity without saying Pat McAfee's name or Ari Emanuel's name or just generically saying, stop messing with me around WrestleMania because I'm still standing here. And I think people like a righteous babyface doing a victory lap when he's earned it at the expense of someone who they don't like. And that's what tonight's segment was supposed to be, and I thought it worked. And so, but even the way they told the Cody story, I think, Javier, they were not cognizant of how people would interpret it as, oh, they're just going to turn Cody heel. When I think it's, again, not obvious, because I don't think anything in WWE storytelling is obvious right now, because I think there's such flailing. You can't have confidence 100% with anything. But I think the best, most logical option was they're telling a babyface Cody story, and people are thinking about, well, there's a few scattered boos, and they're putting him against other babyfaces who are more popular in that moment. And then there was that AEW backlash, so it must be a heel turn. Your thoughts?
Yeah, we jumped away from the Sami thing into the Cody thing.
Yeah, well, but I think there's some. You're factually right, but there's some parallels because it could happen with Cody. People could prematurely turn on him. That's my point.
I was going to bring it up anyway because during Cody's thing, I think that WWE is now in the Sami Zayn is a heel, and I think they are purposely playing that he's going to play the babyface, oblivious of the fact that it's not working. Right, that he's the heel. I think that's kind of what they're going to go with. And if anyone could pull that off in some sort of way, it could be him. I don't know if the writing team's going to be there to back him up in the stories they're going to tell, but we'll see how that goes. Watching it today, it really had a feel to me of like Bret Hart when the fans turned on Bret Hart and Bret Hart seemed like legit hurt. Of what did I do? Why are you cheering for Stone Cold against me? That's kind of what this has the same feel to me. I think Sami Zayn would probably be a little bit more professional overall, and deal with his feelings. That's kind of the gist I got. So, and with the Cody thing, I think that for sure he's a baby because when he came out, like outside of the first like pop because he came out, it became like. I would say 75% boo. 75% boo to him. That it felt like the people who were cheering Cody were fighting against the boos. But then by the end of the promo, I think he had flipped at 75-25. Where there were still people who were now still trying to get the boos going, but he had won over that middle 50% that was just going with one of the two sides. Based on the stuff he said, and that comes from whether if they're expecting for Cody to be a heel, which what is worrisome is the Monday night. They're going to have him face CM Punk.
We don't know when.
Yeah, no, but just the idea of it is kind of like okay, so we're going to want now Punk to be because Punk will likely gain. Randy Orton got pulled people away from Cody because of the legacy aspect.
Yep.
So and now you're going to put Punk. So now I'm wondering, like, are you booking him against these people because you want him to turn heel and he doesn't want to turn heel, but he does a good job of it, so he's able to win the audience over? Like, is he fighting also the booking too? Is that also what's going on here? Not just the meddling and maybe the booking wants him to go heel and he doesn't want.
I think The Rock wanted Cody to turn heel because Rock didn't think Cody was a big deal when Cody was a bigger deal than John Cena ever was. If you look at the crowds he was drawing, there's certainly some metrics where that doesn't apply. But in terms of wrestling fans paying money to see main event wrestlers in world title matches, Cody was getting a unified or nearly unified cheers during everything he was doing on his journey to finishing his story and the fallout from it. And it was after the meddling that people started turning because fans want to anticipate what they think the story is and get ahead of it. I think that's part of it. I think people are excited to see Cody turn heel. So there's sort of it'll be interesting and new. So give us the interesting and new thing because our brains are so trained for dopamine rushes. We have no attention spans anymore. And we just want change, turn, feed us it. And we're going to anticipate it and try to make it happen too quickly before we finished our story. And so it was a combination of different things, meddling, knowing Cody will be a phenomenal heel when that day comes, and a culture where fans were, WWE is telling fans, we're here to please you. Tell us what you want. We hope we entertained you instead of, my philosophy as a booker, promoter, and wrestler would be, you are privileged to be here. From a storyline presentation, the culture of the presentation, not in real life. In real life, you appreciate your customers, but the way to appreciate your customers is to give them an experience that they appreciate at a peak level. And the way to get people to appreciate pro wrestling at a peak level is to make them think that they're there as in a privileged place to watch something important and entertaining and exciting happening, not we're sitting here judging whether you have entertained us in the way that we have decided we want to be entertained. And that's that the WWE has trained their audience to believe that it's their job to sit in their chair and evaluate whether the booking and the wrestlers have given them the story that they desire. And now that fans feel they have that power and that is the expectation, it's changed a lot. It's made things more difficult. I don't think Cody's fighting anything other than meddling by higher ups. I think there's a whole unified group of people in WWE who aren't The Rock and TKO people who want Cody to be a babyface, and they want to be able to tell their damn stories without interference once a year. And I think they're hell-bent on telling the Cody Rhodes babyface story for longer. And I think anything else you see is examples of WWE flailing a bit because they're not very good at what they're trying to do. But my interpretation of everything from watching TV and talking to people is they're doing their best to fight off fans trying to prematurely turn Cody and get him back on track after meddling from other people who just drop in as carpetbaggers to try to shake things up because they actually did not respect what Cody had accomplished while they weren't watching TV every week. While everyone at Gorilla, everyone in creative meetings, and all the wrestlers were there every week putting in the work. And there's still resentment there over that, and they're just trying to get past it. And Brian says he's still getting boos, though. That misses the point entirely. They are acknowledging that they're trying to fight it. The reason he's getting boos, I'm acknowledging, is because fans want to be ahead of the story, and they're anticipating he's turning heel, and they think he'll be more entertaining as a heel. And I talk about this every week, Brian. I don't know if you're here every week. He goes, it's I'm tired of your act boos. Yes, WWE knows they're tired of the act that Cody has become when outsiders meddle with the story that they believe in and that worked before the meddling came around. They do not have a defeatist attitude that Cody cannot be over as a babyface and turn the boos into cheers. They don't have a defeatist attitude about it. They believe Cody can get cheered if everyone would get out of their damn way and let them tell the Cody babyface story with some heels. Actual freaking heels. Think about that. When's the last time Cody got to face a heel? Randy Orton cut a babyface promo that undercut Cody getting cheered on the SmackDown before WrestleMania. It was one of the most hideous, awful heel promos given the stakes and the context that you can imagine. It was Randy making a convincing case as a guy who fans had a natural inclination to like because of his legacy, and he's cool. And he cut a promo that made it seem like what he did to Cody, this brutal turn on a longtime friend and colleague and mentor-protege relationship. And all Randy did on promos since then was make a pretty convincing case that it was the right thing to do because Cody gave him permission. And he came out with a cool T-shirt logo. He's still using his catchphrases. It was the exact opposite of a promo that you'd want to do if the goal was to get Cody cheered. And Cody still is getting cheered by a huge percentage of people. And as Javier, you pointed out, if you get out of Cody's way and let him be the good babyface that he can be, that 3-4 years ago he was before the meddling, people will like him again. That's the belief. Maybe it's too late. Maybe damage is done. But they're not. When you say the fans are booing him because they're tired of his act, they're booing him because they're tired of the act that he has to become to adjust to people in power who are ruining what he and the people who are there in the trenches week after week, year round, want him to be. Give them a chance to tell that story. Sean Plitch says, I completely agree, Wade. I've been ranting for a while. LOL. Brian says that makes sense. So thanks, Brian. Yeah, for listening. And taking that in. And then 7-Eleven said it's not that he needs to be heel. It's he needs better motivations as a face. Go ahead, Javier. Yeah,
I want to hit that because if you guys want to, I'm not going to repeat everything I said last time, because I spent a lot of time on our last show where I talked about Cody in that respect. Is the fact that Cody needs a story. Cody needs a story, and so I don't want to just blame the meddling that happened as like the cause of it, because that already started before that during his run, because they were not giving him a story. They were making him an accessory to the stories of other people. He was an accessory to Jey Uso. He was an accessory for the Hell in a Cell. He was and he was an accessory to the Seth Rollins story for that was the champion versus champion, right? So he was just the backup dancer for all these people when he's supposed to be the champion.
Yep.
Because he doesn't
John Cena patted him on the head and treated him like Robin his Batman. Never acknowledged who Cody had become. He treated him like this up-and-comer who someday might draw the crowds that John Cena drew. Cody headlined, and Cody got mad after the McAfee thing, and he pointed this out. Against big-name opponents, there was a common thread, and it was Cody. At all these stadium shows that have been drawing 50,000-plus people, selling out, coming close to selling out, 2 nights in a row, all kinds of bad things going on that would cause it to not succeed. And Cody has been the through line in the boom period of the record-breaking ticket revenue and ticket sales numbers. And he's been the headliner at these stadium shows, drawing more money and more ticket revenue than John Cena ever did. And John Cena showed up and patted Cody on the head and said, "Someday maybe you'll be a draw, son." It was bullshit. And it was I'm the last real champion after he turned babyface. Completely undercutting whatever Cody or whatever future champion would accomplish. John Cena's a babyface, is out there week after week going, "I'm the last real champion," or having the ring announcer introduce it. Cody had all these things going on again, all these things working against him. So of course fans are going to be like, "I think he's turning, so I'm going to be ahead of the curve, and I'm going to be the bellwether fan who boos him, and I'm tired of his act." You're tired of poor booking without, Javier, going back to you, a compelling heel face storyline. And by the way, let me introduce, next week, Ricky Starks shows up. We're back in the Codyverse, perhaps. Ex-NXT champion. Cody and Ricky are good friends. Cody's going to want to give Ricky a good start. Ricky can cut a heel promo. Those two have some chemistry together behind the scenes. They're going to work together cohesively, putting together a good segment on camera. It's not a spoiler. It's just me connecting 2 dots. You say Cody needs something. He needs a heel that isn't an accessory to something else. It's about him. Ricky Starks can come in and cut that. I'm here, and I want to go after Cody. There is a story there to tell. There's talking ability with Ricky. Now, maybe you want to wait 6-9 months to do it, and I can hear that argument. Sometimes we just want to push somebody out of the gate, and Ricky is, mid-30s and a former NXT champ. He's been around, and he can carry himself like a star. I don't think he's a complete total package that's going to be headlining WWE WrestleManias for the next 6, 7, 8 years. I'm not ruling it out. I just won't put my money on that. But I think there's enough there for him to step up, Javier, and kind of be what you're looking for Cody to have.
Yeah, the only issue is like what you mentioned. Has there enough damage been done to Cody? Because Starks is that charismatic that people could then choose to side with him over Cody. What they should have done with Cody the moment he won his first title is a hardcore list of just monsters for him to beat. Because once because his story is the knight in shining armor. So once he slayed the dragon, which was Roman Reigns, nobody wanted to see the knight polishing his sword for the next year. What they wanted to see was the siege of the castle at that point. What they wanted to see would be, Mordred and Morgana and their forces attacking him and him having to beat them back. And eventually it ends in tragedy where he falls because of all this constant harassment. He falls. You have that story. You have the story, the rise and fall of the character. And then if you have him, getting back up and having another, that's like classic storytelling. That's like basic storytelling when, of good versus evil, basically. But when you started him just having him as a cameo in other wrestlers' storylines.
Yep. It diminishes him.
Exactly. And people, and since he's playing the same, oh, shucks, I'm a good guy. You know, what do you want to talk about? You know, people are now mocking that. You know, that's when you start adding the cracks, because like I said early on that Cody would be a babyface as long as the cracks, that where people get tired are handled well by the WWE, because he's not going to do it on his own, because he's not because it's a story, it's a collaborative effort, and I think they failed him in that point. So not helping is the another big letdown was the stuff that he was doing with The Rock. And after The Rock things didn't go the way The Rock wanted, he took his home and he took his ball and went home, basically. A better version of that.
And people sense that. People want their centerpiece champ to be Steve Austin, John Cena, The Rock, Bret Hart. They want somebody who it seems like, it's weird to say it about Steve Austin, but they want somebody who it seems like management of the machine has their back, in the sense that this is the true centerpiece star who has the agency to make sure that they're treated well. And Cody, in this sort of subtle, subliminal, subconscious way, comes across as somebody who's sort of just being jerked around behind the scenes and trying to make the best of it. And I think people want to get behind somebody who just carries himself like he is QB1. He is the alpha, and it's his show, and he's the centerpiece. And there's all this static getting in the way of that message, and it's frustrating for Cody. And let's introduce, too, Cody is always on the cusp, and let's acknowledge this, even as I make my arguments about him. He's always on the cusp of being too much. I mean, he's just a little too, formal in his presentation. And, the WrestleMania entrance, here's, wax figure, statue, whatever, of all my gimmicks. It's like there's a little bit of grandiosity to him that can be off-putting. And that is always just waiting to be unleashed into boos.
I would say, because grandiosity in terms of wrestling is good, is the fact that it's actually beginning it comes too close to pomposity.
Yep.
That's the problem. He feels like he's too full of himself, because,
ostentatious is a word. That's what I'm looking. Ostentatious is the word I use for him. Yep. And that's not a typical. Trick Williams is ostentatious, but it feels earned because of his personality. With Cody, it feels a little weird.
Well, it's also a little bit unearned for Trick Williams, but it's part of the character. That's kind of part of the development.
Yeah, earned isn't a great word. It feels natural.
Yeah, well,
Cody's a son of a plumber, a blue collar athlete in the ring who presents himself as a white collar, ostentatious suit wearing. I got to dress the part. And McAfee tried to make fun and undercut it. I mean, he's complicated. And that ostentatiousness is so turnkey heel, but there's so much about him, and it's why his journey worked. And it's why I think they can get another year or 2 or 3 out of him as a babyface if they get it's as Cody practically begged Javier at the end of his promo. I mean, I loved his closing line. He says, the most important message he wanted to send to the outside forces who get involved in his WrestleMania plans. They're 0-3. So send your best or count your money and mind your damn business. Then he said it with intensity. Now, is this partially storyline? Yeah, perhaps, or likely. There's a card they can play later, but it also works in that kind of meta level of Cody needs to stand up to the powers who are meddling, who are messing around. The debacle with McAfee, they won't even say his name. He's persona non grata. Nobody in that locker room wants him around. He didn't mingle with the wrestlers except the big shots who he wanted to big shot with. He wasn't one of the boys. People didn't respect him. And then he went out and cut a promo that was so disrespectful in a way that he was so oblivious to why it was disrespectful, because he didn't understand anybody can be a hack and cut that shoot promo about you marks. That's the lowest hanging fruit. That's the lowest form of heel heat. And he thought it was original and that he was brilliant doing it. And almost anybody and their cousin can cut that promo. But he didn't know that. So it's rough.
I mean, they could pivot all this animosity into TKO and have it be represented by The Rock if he's willing to play ball. And then if you put all this that's happened onto him, and then towards next WrestleMania, it's, a battle for the soul of the company between Cody and The Rock. So to basically it represent Cody versus the board, that you could pivot into that if you wanted to, obviously you have to hit the story beats, but yeah, that would be, saving grace is not a great word, but not the word I'm looking for. More like you're what the best you could do with the ingredients you currently have.
Yeah, I know what. Yeah, I'm trying to save you with a phrase, but I can't come up with it. Couple chat comments here. Powder over Pete says Cody's syrupy sweet. It is who he is. Sean Plichta says not every face can be like Cody, but it works for him. Goodfella says Cody himself in a promo a few weeks back said he doesn't know if he has a heel run in him right now. He's rich. He has newborn kids. He doesn't have the angst right now. Let him shine as a babyface or a tweener. We don't say tweener around here. That's an awful idea. 7-Eleven says, my only real complaint with Cody is he's not believable in the ring. Something about his moveset doesn't mesh well with most opponents. Way too over-reliant on his spring moves. I mean, Cody's not the perfect package. Orton with a bad back, that was rough. A lot of that match was rough. But as Sean says, I really enjoy Cody's matches. They usually tell great stories. I like he doesn't do a lot of high-flying stuff. Piled River Pizza is one of the things I like about Cody is it's obvious that wrestling is one of the most important things in his life, and he shows it. Brian says, I like Cody, but I think he's too over the top at times. I think everybody who likes Cody believes he's too over the top a lot of the time. And so it's endearing if you want it to be. If you don't, you can't wait for him to turn heel. And WWE has to fight that battle with him. Goodfella says, always learn something new on the show. Cheers, Wade. 7-Eleven says he does a lot of high-flying stuff. It's usually normal Cody Cutter, disaster kick, the super Cody Cutter, all moves that require the other guy to just stand there. Standard Aviation says both sides of Cody were on display. His promo felt authentic and emotional, but then he just had to lean on the ropes and act out his performative smile in head-turning sequence like a wind-up toy. There was a comment earlier that I wanted to... Okay, yeah, Del J, I think, 1840 says, I disagree that fans were booing Cody to get ahead of the booking. That's not why mainstream fans turn on an act. Let me be clear. I'm not saying just one thing when it comes to why Cody's getting booed. I'm saying it's a concert of things. Javier, you've listed bullet points that I wouldn't have brought up that are pertinent, and I'm glad you did, in terms of the booking and him kind of feeling secondary, and he was a player in other stories. This gets into something I talk about, which is WrestleMania cards are not based on the best matches that tell the best stories. They're based on finding something to do for the people who have the most, who have the most tenure as top guys with people in powerful positions who lobby for them to get a true top spot. And it's kind of like musical chairs, like with Gunther and Seth. It's just sort of like, well, these are the only two left standing. They're in a match. And so what you end up with is what Javier you described. Sometimes Cody can't be the centerpiece because he doesn't have a natural heel opponent, so now he's just a player in somebody else's story. And too much of that has been going on. There are, to Deljoy's point, there are fans who I years ago talked about as bellwether fans. They're the ones who set the tone for how the mainstream fans that you talk about react. And so if they are anticipating heel turn and they want to be ahead of the curve, there will be other fans who will join them if the booking is flailing, unclear, which WWE's booking all over the place is flailing and unclear. And fans start noticing things about Cody they don't like, or they think he is a heel because these fans are booing him, and it can gain some steam. And I think that's why we hear layers of boos for Cody. It's not boo everybody. Like there's some scattered boos, and then it can turn into a Cody chant, or it can grow a little bit depending on the context. But he's not getting, we have a new term, JC Jane boos. Like hasn't happened. And I don't think it's likely to happen when WWE is pushing back on it. And certainly Cody's promo tonight was a pushback on it. When he goes, Orton gave me his best shot, punt kicked me, and I'm standing here. I've got, an eye socket problem, or orbital bone problem, and I'm all, damaged up. And they stitched me up and stapled me, and I didn't take the loser's lane. Cody's going all over the place in that promo, but that was somebody fighting on the microphone to get cheered, whether it's to get cheered before he turns, so it's not premature that he gets booed, or it's cheered because he wants to do a long run as a face. That was somebody making a case, just like he did after the McAfee promo when they gave him the mic. He's trying to make his case to get the fans back on his side. And I think he did a good a good job with it tonight. Yeah. So anyway, Javier, that's a lot. Anything you want to respond to there, or continue your thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned that I was surprised with how much. Hey, I got a bark! Yay! I was surprised with how much of the crowd he got back, because by the end it felt like I said, it was 75% boost, 25% cheers. Then it felt like it reversed that. And as long as they keep hitting, give him a good heel to go up against. I don't know who that's going to be right now. But build up a heel for him to really, go at it, because I think if you go to Punk now, which I don't think so, but if you go to Punk now, I think that just makes things worse. I think it's
a little ways down the line, but I'm with you. I'm groaning at another face matchup for Cody.
Yeah, so
that's where I'm hoping. I mean, I think Ricky Saints makes it, because Cody's key line at the end is, I'm easy to find, hard to beat. Whether you are from NXT, Raw, or SmackDown, come find me. I mean, that is just, and then you run a Ricky Saints vignette. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, it seems like, hey, NXT guy, it might make more sense if they didn't run a vignette saying it's going up next week, but because it can kind of be Ricky stepping up. But in a way, it's better to make it seem like Ricky's been formally promoted.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm thinking, since he took a shot at Sami, but Sami is involved in the Trick Williams stuff still.
Yeah.
So,
but that's certainly coming up. And that's the thing. If they don't do Ricky right away, I don't know why Cody would have said, if you're from NXT, Raw, or SmackDown, I'm here, if they weren't going to have somebody step up who wasn't part of an ongoing story. So I think there might be a Ricky Saints chapter, then a Sami chapter, then Punk. I mean, that would be. And who knows by then how they tell the Punk Cody story. I think the Punk Cody stuff was trying to use Punk to give Cody a rub, because I think Punk and Cody, I want to say this isn't news, I don't know this, but my inclination is to think Punk and Cody bonded over TKO, Ari, Pat McAfee. They each did bookend promos tearing into McAfee. They both felt super insulted that McAfee. I have my. Let me see if I can find my headline here. McAfee says WWE is now absolute shit. If you're headlining WrestleMania, you've been headlining PLEs, and you're defining that era, and this blowhard podcast suck-up sycophant fanboy carpetbagger comes in and gets free mic time and says that, that's going to bond you. And I think what Punk was doing is, well, I want to come out, I want to give Cody the CM Punk rub. Punk's pretty Teflon. I mean, people choose between Punk and AEW and the Young Bucks, and people chose sides between Punk and Roman. But Punk, people like Punk even when they choose somebody else instead of him in a particular situation. And I think he wanted to show some solidarity and give Cody a little rub going into WrestleMania to help Cody stay babyface. I don't think that was meant to be a hint of them feuding. And then they're very sportsmanlike in how they've interacted with each other. So I think they're going to have a more traditional, I respect you, you respect me, let's test each other while we're still capable of staking the claim that we're world title level. And my hunch is it will be that rather than a hate fest like Roman and Punk was. Javier.
Maybe. I've got history with Punk, so I'm like I'm playing it out in my head.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
I mean, because I'm thinking like thinking back to WrestleMania. Again, it's because it's Punk, and maybe I have like a skewed perception. But he did take some cheap shots during the Roman Reigns match. He did cheat. He went for some stuff, and I'm like, are we getting seeds of maybe a Punk heel turn? And I'm like, because I don't think that's even a good idea either. If you have a heel Punk versus babyface Cody Rhodes, because now you're forcing the people who are going to cheer Punk even as a heel. Against so you run into the same. My concern is you're going to run into the same situation they did with the Orton story.
Yeah, well, the Orton. Let me underline the result of a feud is, in terms of crowd reaction, is not inevitable. It wasn't fait accompli that fans are going to choose Randy over Cody if Randy and the writing team were committed to actually having Randy go heel. But they did everything to get in the way of it. So, like, the result of something is not proof that it was inevitable. People mistake that. Like, well, this is the result. It was inevitable. No, they had weeks to tell a story to change that result. And instead, everything they did, much to my, like, dismay or I was perplexed, just ran counter to what they wanted the end goal to be. And that's when they're just flailing. I don't get why some people who I respect don't see that what Randy did was just like the worst promo you could cut if the goal is to get Cody cheered. And I think it's obvious, given the announcer narrative, they wanted Cody cheered. They linked up Orton with McAfee, of all people. Of course they wanted Cody cheered and Randy booed, but they don't know how to do it. They're so lost. They're so addicted to social media and dopamine rushes. They don't have the patience to just trust good storytelling and let the fans know, we got this. I don't care what your mood is this week or what your reaction is to some single segment. We're not changing course. We just trust us. Get on the train and let us take you on a ride, and stop trying to crash into the conductor area, wherever they steer the train. Go ahead, Bob, here.
Well,
the cockpit.
We had that conversation of, like, when it looked like it was heading into Cody versus Orton. I knew they were not going to resist it being a babyface heel. We had talked about it. What we just said about Punk. Two friends, see who's better, and then come out at the end. That automatically made it the B main event when you had CM Punk and Reigns on the other side, and then you have Orton, which is tail end of his career. That was going to be the B main event. I think that they decided to go so I knew they were not going to be able to resist making what's the name Orton a heel. And at that point, I was calling for, if you're going to make him a heel, have him be a heel, not do anything that he can't come back from. And then after WrestleMania said, I did that because I wanted to give you the best shot, and then, like, they kiss and made up right after WrestleMania, similar to what Cody said when he said, I want the best of you. And then after WrestleMania, we kiss and make up. And then he killed him. It was what I feared, was that they were just going to kill him, because I knew that people were going to be split, because Orton had the legacy story. Orton had the story going into that match. Orton had the story that he wants the 15 so he could be the third longest, the third most reigns, and people are pulling for Orton to get one more shot. He's the one coming into the story, not Cody. So it's obvious that people are going to want to back, a good percentage of your audience will want to back Orton, because he's got the story, he's got the legacy. One more shot, one more, grasp at gold. He had the more compelling story going into that than Cody did. And then they, instead of, telling a story of, where they could have, like, elevated Cody's story and made it more about him being the student and that. The best part, and I use best in quotes, the best moment of that feud was when Cody said, well, people, after he got beat up, he goes, well, those of you who thought this was going to be a mentor-mentee storyline, guess what? It's not, because obviously that ship sailed. And he said it was frustration. So it sounds like he was, speaking from, he wanted to have, the mentor versus student a storyline, which is a classic storyline. And somebody wanted to, throw more peppers in the mix, and then it became inedible.
Here's a quote from the Matt and Shane Secret podcast from Cody. Randy Orton, who I'm wrestling at WrestleMania, we have like almost 2 decades of history between each other. He was my mentor. I had Cena, who I drove around. I had Randy, very different opinions, but also really helped shape me. We were on the screen together as part of the group legacy. He had my dad's last match. My first match in the company is Randy. There's a lot of rich material. And then we inserted Pat McAfee. And that's, well, we're literally in that part right now. Yeah. All that history. All that, and you can tell Cody was excited to incorporate it, and they just blew it all.
It would have been your beat. It would have been the third most exciting of the matches, with the number one being Obafemi, Brock Lesnar, Reigns and Punk number 2, and then this one were number 3. That's fine. Someone said, no, this is a main event. We need to make sure that this one gets the, so we got to add more, and just keep adding more, and just.
And 7-Eleven says, I would have preferred a face Orton against a face Rhodes at Mania. Would have created way more tension and uncertainty. I think they felt with so many just face-to-face matchups, we got to change it. But Orton didn't seem committed to the bit or aware of how to make it work, with all due respect. So, yeah. Del J says, sad WWE was willing to turn Cena heel for Mania, but not Orton. Wrong decision in both cases. Goodfella, you came in late. He says, Aleister Black over Pat would have been such a better TV art. In my opinion, patience, please take a chance. That was never, my understanding is it was never a thing. The phone thing was created with Pat McAfee in mind. Like it dates back to that apparently. So Aleister Black was never going to be the person on the phone. I know that's been reported and gained a life of its own. My understanding is not.
If I were to speculate why that reporting came about, it's it is implied in storyline canon that Aleister Black was trying to get into Randy Orton's head. There were moments that were like that. So I think people remembered that, and someone said, "Hey, it would have made sense if Aleister Black were in his head." And likely would have been what it would have been, So, and I think that someone wrote that story in their head, reported it, and then that's what's been making the rounds.
Yeah,
that's how some of these kind of rumors can occur, because it makes sense, but it's not.
And I have people I talk to who know what they know, and I haven't written a story and put a big headline and counter that. It's just because it's coming up in the chat. I'm bringing that up. I think Mike Johnson was the first to report it, and he's usually pretty good with that stuff. But it could be what you're saying, Javier, that his report was somebody in WWE told him, based on trying to connect dots, that actually was a wrong guess. And, there are top wrestlers who do not know their storylines because WWE doesn't want it out. And I know there's super small circles of people who know big things, and the phone thing could have been happening with a incredibly. Cody might not have been told. Probably, but there are storylines where WWE really, really, really wants to keep it quiet. But in the meantime, people are going to try to figure it out, and that is, like you said, it could be this makes too much sense not to be the case. So let's report that it is a case, or let's tell someone that is a case, or a wrestler just. Through a game of we played game of telephone in kindergarten. By the time the fourth person says it, it now has become what if, or it probably is too. Oh, that is the plan. So,
because since I in comic, I like serial or long-term storytelling without they just go on and on forever. It very well could have been something that 5 months ago, before they even settled on things. Because if you think back. They've been teasing a lot of moments of Randy Orton, glancing longingly at the belt. So those teases have been around for a while. Then you had the stuff with Aleister Black. And then, granted, Orton was out for a bit during that. But when it looked like WrestleMania was going to be Roman Reigns and Cody, those references stopped.
Yep.
So that means that they pivoted somewhere else.
Yep.
Only for when they went back, then you had the rest of the stuff happen. So it's very likely that maybe Aleister Black was going to be involved in some sort of way,
right?
And then whoever
and Black was hovering around other people too. 7-Eleven says it wasn't Aleister Black caught in the background of McAfee segment or something via Shinsuke Nakamura in the shadows. Cavante Small says Black was in the background for the Orton McAfee backstage segments. That may be where Aleister came from. And that's the thing. It's not they weren't going to do, and they didn't have ideas of doing it. But keep in mind, Black was just doing the Karrion Kross thing, just I'm hanging out and getting in people's heads about a lot of things. I can't remember how many people he was in, walking into the scene on at the end and kind of picking up where Karrion Kross left off. But I think that's probably, again, Javier, what you're saying is that happened, and people said, well, obviously it's him because they've laid the clues out, and that's where it's heading. And what I'm hearing is no, it was never where it was heading, specifically about the phone calls, because Aleister doesn't need to call him. He's there, in theory. So,
Sami Zayn was another one that Aleister got into his head.
Sammy?
Yeah, Sami Zayn.
Yep. All right. And by the way, Kairi Sane's situation didn't play out. The Sabin and Shelley storyline with Gargano didn't play out. Of course, something with Aleister was planned. That was incorporated in, but it doesn't, they don't always finish all their storylines either. All right. JC Jane had incredible heel heat tonight. I don't think anybody anticipated that. Julia and Kiana James have been trying to get heat. They didn't get that. As a non-weekly, to put it lightly, Javier, NXT viewer, what did you make of what you saw with Fatal Influence showing up and the crowd reaction? Like, did you think, have I missed big angles or promos that caused 10,000 people in Fort Worth, Texas to know who this is and react so strongly?
Yeah, I mean, like, I do listen to Todd Martin when he talks about NXT. I was not expecting them to show up with nuclear heat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've got that style. I don't know them, but they have that kind of style of like a modern version of Beautiful People, So and just so I get where some of the heat comes from, but like the nuclear level of heat is like, is she an NXT superstar? It seemed she played into it. She also, you could tell the WWE didn't plan it, because when they do plan it, they work in the pause to soak it in moments.
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell that she knows that she's on a timer.
Yes.
So she let it say soak in, but she's like, I gotta get to, we gotta get to the next moment.
That was funny. It's so true. Yeah.
And I'm also reading,
because she said we can wait all night for you, and then she goes, no, I'm just going to keep talking to you. I don't have all night, actually.
And one of the two, I didn't catch their names. One of their two started getting uncomfortable, and I'm thinking like, you should be smiling because this is the kind of heat you can only dream of. But you could tell she was caught off guard, and she seemed to a point getting uncomfortable. And I think JC Jane did a good job, leaning into it. But yeah, it came out of nowhere to me. I mean, you have, you probably know more about them than I do. I'm just surprised they got that crazy.
Over at ProWrestling.net, John Moore, who I believe covers NXT for ProWrestling.net. Let me make sure I'm not conflating names. Yeah, of course. He covered SmackDown tonight. It was a good night with new wrestlers showing up. And, he talked about things that Kelly Wells has talked about and others have too, which is that JC Jane has improved a lot quickly, where some people were really surprised and almost against the push that she was getting in NXT suddenly, not that long ago. But then a lot of people came around and said, oh, she got that because she's better than we even had realized. Like someone had determined she was ready for the moment. John Moore wrote over at ProWrestling.net in his SmackDown report, very happy to see JC Jane get the call-up. As she started last year as someone people would look past. Once she got the surprise NXT Women's and TNA Knockouts title wins, she took the ball and ran with it by becoming really good in the ring, while also becoming a strong heel talker and antagonist to whoever she went against. Happy to see Fallon get called up too, as she's very versatile, and whenever they explode the group, she'll make a fun babyface if they let her go back to that role. So there's a little background from somebody, just their beat is NXT for ProWrestling.net, and that is the story with her. People were like, what? Why is she getting this title shot? Why is she getting these wins? And it was like, oh, wait, because she's ready. And we're surprised, but she's really stepped up.
It's funny because my impression of her in the match was she wrestles like someone who it doesn't come naturally to, but really practices it hard. It kind of reminds me of like Alexa Bliss and Liv Morgan, where they're professionals now and they've learned how to do it, but you can tell it's not like it's not like Jeff Hardy, There, that or Lita, where so I can use a woman that it comes naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And and it looked fine. She looked fine. So nothing, wrong with match, But yeah, I get it.
And part of what helped JC Jane get booed is people like Rhea Ripley. And to WWE's credit, they're pushing Rhea Ripley as a babyface against heels right now. And Rhea is a top star who fans want to cheer against a heel. And, I was a little worried when they put Paige in her big return on SmackDown in a tag match opposite of two babyface wrestlers. It's like, oh God, they just can't get away from it. But it was just a setup for this. So it's like, okay, the means to get to the ends is justified now because they all got beat down by these heels. And so it worked. But I think that helped set up, wait, they just attacked 4 of our favorites, or maybe 3 out of 4 were their favorites. You can pick who might not be in the 2-on-2 women's tag match. But, JC Jane and her crew came out later and went after Rhea, and people love Rhea. And it helps to have a really good, popular babyface who's not damaged standing there opposite of new heels. And that might be what they hope happens with Ricky Starks next week. If he comes out and in a sort of way answers Cody's open challenge. I'm here, I'm not hard to find. Anyone from NXT, SmackDown, or Raw, come. And it's like, well, and then there's Ricky Saints vignette. I might call him Stark, so I apologize. Hard habit to break. But Ricky Saints shows up, and so they might hope for similar heat. I don't think they'll get heat. I don't think he'll match JC Jane heat, but because that is a bit of an aberration, Javier.
Yeah, I mean, maybe All Ego, Ethan Page.
Yeah. He's somebody I think they'd want to warm up more to face Cody. I'm just saying he's like just great heel. So. Oh no, I know, yeah.
And I can't say his name without thinking All Ego first. So
I get it, yeah. So honestly, I mean, it's sort of a AEW tour then, with Ethan and Ricky. But yeah, if we get a Codyverse going, but with some editing, we always said Cody will be a good babyface if he just has an editor. Like, Cody, maybe we want to leave this line out. Maybe we need to shorten it. Let's tighten it up.
Let's not have any baby reveals.
Yeah, I mean, the solving racism. The thesaurus word of the week that, half the time was slightly misused in a way that, it made it seem like it's trying to sound smarter, as part of the gimmick. They're just little, but I mean, most of what he does is really good. Him showing up in the pickup truck that I think McAfee was right. I don't know what that was all about. He showed up in the same truck that McAfee had been driving on SmackDown today when he arrived. So I didn't even think of that to bring it up. What's that?
Was that in the opening? Because I missed the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, because I had technical difficulties and I saw it when Fatu was coming to the ring, and I assumed because it was WrestleMania, the first 7 minutes of the show was going to be just recaps.
Now they showed wrestlers arriving. I think, Cody stepped out of the silver pickup truck. So anyway, I don't know what to make of that, if anything. But yeah, yes. Del J says, that was Dominic Mysterio level heat. So for sure. Powder Repeat predicts Saints will win over everyone with his charisma. 7-Eleven says, my only issue with JC's sidekicks is they look like every other women wrestler. Goodfella says, Liv and Alexa had great built-in fan base. In my opinion, JC is grinding every steps of the way. Sean Plichta says, JC can go as high as she wants. Just keep working hard in the ring and on the mic. Goodfella says, JC has an interesting journey in NXT. She's earned it. I still see her as middle of the card, but to be continued. Powder Repeat said, it's a feel-good story. A lot of people wrote JC off.
Push her hard, now. I mean, obviously the fans are against her, and for Rhea Ripley, give her a shot. If it's better to start somebody up high and then let them find their level than start them low and let them work up to it. So,
yeah, I think it's case by case, but there shouldn't be a hard and fast rule. And what you're saying is absolutely the way to go with a lot of talent.
Yeah, obviously, but I would say in general, just not, obviously not everybody, but
yeah. Standard Aviation says the silver truck was to advertise the same sponsor who got 25% off night 1 tickets. That was not lost on Cody that he was driving the same truck that McAfee was driving. So I get why I'm glad I didn't say that. I'm glad he brought that up. That's the reason. But you could have a lot of wrestlers drive in that truck, but it's sort of like he drove off, he's gone, but the truck is still here. Like, I'm coming back without that albatross carpetbagger, like, idiot. We got our truck, but the guy driving is gone. So anyway, okay. I got one more rant in me, and I alluded to it earlier. The Miz, Danhausen stuff, it's just too cute. It's just, it's slapstick. It's not that well done. It feels, and I didn't like it even before I saw that Miz has a Cybertruck. Just what a douche. Sorry, Cybertruck, but everyone says it when you drive around in those. You're a douche. And he is just like, the idea of like there's a camera like inside Miz's house when Danhausen shows up. All they had to do is just establish Danhausen has like, his Brandon Cutler guy, somebody who follows him around with a camera and do a real handheld camera view. It wouldn't be as cinematic, but it would actually resonate as something you can believe in the moment is a real thing that happened. You can suspend your disbelief effectively. But when you have literally every room Miz walked in, there's a camera, not a security camera, even that'd have been corny, but it would have made more sense. But like a whole 4K, like 8K, whatever camera in every room of Miz's house, catching him everywhere he goes out to the pool. It's just stupid. I know, Javier, you're like, well, you can have one part of a show that does it one way, but that did not work for me tonight, and I didn't think the material was worth it either.
Yeah, it was bad. Again, thank you for seeing my understanding my perspective, because normally it wouldn't bother me as much. It's a case by case basis. But the fact that this was an actual full blown skit, that's a bit different than because it's like the example, the one that I really liked, I know you were against, was the Cody Roman at the stadium with music and the soundtrack and stuff. I really like that one. That still has left an impression with me. But I get it. I get why you won't like that style. With this is a little bit more, because now it's literally like a sitcom scene that we're filming. And it was not funny. The only funny moment was him riding off on his daughter's bicycle and saying, "Oh, he has a spaceship." That was it. That was the only thing I actually chuckled at. Everything else was kind of like in Spanish you say un poco. So, and then
Tessitore and Barrett get into a whole conversation about the merits of stealing a little girl's bike. And
that part was funny. Maybe not productive use of your time that on TV, but I find it funny. I find their squabbles over Tessitore, trying to get under Barrett's skin, just like saying, "Oh, it's really a curse. It's really a curse." And Barrett being you, Wade, he's like, "How much are we paying the pyro guy?"
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
So I'm thinking that part. I'm digging the stuff that's happening in the ring. I'm digging. But what mostly bugged me actually was the fact that he was successfully disappearing in the house when it doesn't work. Because even the backstage, I'll buy the backstage because he's just running off camera and then he's hiding after that. That's fine. I could buy that when this is the backstage skit. But the house where like he literally disappears in front of him, I'm like,
so you can have Danhausen have a roaming camera guy. You can also have it be Miz has some TV crew there to film lifestyles of the rich and famous for some YouTube, some influencers doing like Miz can go, "You're interrupting. I was showing off my house to this famous YouTube influencer and you come in here and ruin it." It's so easy to just solve it with something. Give us something that makes us
go the paranormal route. The movie where it basically is just like the cams that he has all over his house, kind of like when they did GT.
Right, I brought that up. It could have been security. It'd still be corny. Like, why did we splice all this footage together? But
and obviously the close-ups and that you could just hand wave that away as like this really fancy camera that he has, security cameras, but give you the angle of like it's obviously on the table looking up.
That's the thing. Either make the footage rough because it's a security cam, have it be a handheld, bouncy, low-grade handheld that Danhausen's assistant is filming, which would be my vote. But my other vote, I think Miz answers the door, and there should be a big shiny light set up for because a TV crew's there, and Miz like, "I'm here showing off my house to an influencer." Like, just explain why the cameras are there. It makes sense. Miz would be really upset with Danhausen if he ruined his lifestyle of the rich and famous type YouTube show about his, it's not the kind of house. It's a whole side issue. That's not the kind of house I want to live. That's a show off house that is not cozy in they're not spending time in those rooms. That's like sitting in a lobby of a hotel your whole life. It's a show-off house as a Cybertruck. Well, it's its own thing. And like, you can have bright lights and good cameras. Like, I think this is where I was leading. Beaver jumped in, Javier, with another good point. But I think what fans want is a signal that WWE knows how dumb it is, and they're trying to cover for it. Like, what you don't want is them to think they don't know it's stupid. And a lot of times, like, there are people who just, in wrestling, who don't understand the basic fundamentals of the structure of how pro wrestling works. And they don't understand it, and then they abuse it. Or Paul Levesque is trying to be trendy and stay cool as he enters his late 50s. And so I can't be too stubborn. So he just lets go of logic that he knows better than.
Now, I do want to say one positive thing about it. I want to see more ideas like this of stuff happening earlier in the day in different locations to break up the show. So, so I don't want them to just like, oh, well, this didn't work, so we're going to shelve this stuff for forever. Something where like you're at a restaurant or something like that. I'd like to see some of that, because we used to get that a lot, but now it's just like everything is in the backstage.
Very good. Javier, anything else you want to bring up before we sign off here?
I don't think so. I didn't have much notes.
And Priest and R-Truth retained. That was kind of part of the Mateo Tama thing weave throughout the show.
The Tama Tonga getting a Solo into that match with Fatu was fun, since Solo has been getting Tama into matches. This was they reversed it. Hopefully they don't continue this teasing of breaking them up and then let go of one of them. Or they let go Shinsuke before you can finish that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks, Javier. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Fun conversation, fun show. You are invited to go VIP. So just go do it. Get a 7-day free trial on Patreon. Patreon.com/PWTorch VIP. That is podcast only VIP access. But if that's what you're looking for, that's a good route to go. And that syncs up with Spotify. So try us free for 7 days. Unlock all the VIP shows and then get the commercial break free versions of our free shows. Or go full VIP and have unmatched nearly 4 decades of archives, hundreds of retro radio shows from the 90s, a ad-free website with one rabbit hole after another taking you to what I was writing in the late 1980s about professional wrestling when I was a teenager, through my radio show on KFAN in the early 90s with big-name guests in a live call-in format. Just really fun stuff. Whatever area you're looking for, it is there for you. Well over 100, closing in on 200 interviews and conversations with former creative team members in WWE. Ed Ferrara, Vince Russo, John Piermarini. All the well-known names from that era, including Brian Gewirtz, which was really fun. I wish we had done follow-up interviews. We talked about it, and I just didn't follow up on that. But I had a really good interview with him when his book came out. So anyway, all kinds of cool stuff. Go VIP, check it out. There'll never be a boring rainy day again, and it's certainly better than just wasting away your life doom scrolling and interacting with a bunch of goofs on social media. You will get more out of the time you spend on the VIP site than you will on social media apps. I promise you, you will feel that way. No, not guaranteeing. I'm promising. I don't know what that means. But check it out. PWTorch.com/GoVIP for full details on how to sign up, support what we do, and get a lot of benefits and content in return. Javier Machado, thanks again. Thanks to everybody who joined us in the chat, and we'll talk to you Monday night after Raw right here on YouTube. And check out our podcast over the weekend, including that aforementioned Jim Ross interview going up exclusively on the Blue Logo Show. Search Wade Keller on your podcast app for that. Thanks, everybody.